Sorry for wearing my civilian clothes today. I'm in dad mode, about to watch a gymnastics meet in Dallas. So thanks for letting me be a little schleppy today. But yeah, Justin Chronister. I'm physician internal medicine at Oklahoma State University. I've served in a bunch of different leadership positions in my time as a doctor. Currently serving as the program director for the residency training program. I'm finishing up my sixth year. I was the associate program director for 3 years before that, and then I've served as a medical director for a hospitalist group for about 4 years prior to that. After my residency training, so that's been my foray into leadership within the medical field.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So one of the things that we really want to focus on in class is motivation. So what are some of the ways that you uncover what motivates your team members? And then do you have any processes to continue to keep them motivated?
Yeah, it's medicine's hard. I think it's just like a lot of other businesses where stakes are high. So you're dealing with important things. Not to say that other types of professions don't have the same level of stakes, but we are talking life and death, making good decisions. So motivation's hard. I think in our field, especially with training physicians, it's kind of built in a little bit, and that's a beautiful thing and something I don't have to focus on as much. But the fear of making a wrong decision that will implicate itself into someone else's life and their health is a significant motivating factor. So that's kind of the foundation in which people start kind of their interactions with me. So I don't have to start at ground zero from a motivating standpoint. Um, and I think it kind of filters into culture a little bit, in that when we look for the right team members, we're looking for people who have that intrinsic motivation, who don't need that extrinsic motivation. So for us, I mean, we're kind of doing the motivation stuff on the back end, I guess on the front end. On the back end, when people actually need additional motivation, it's really trying. It's less about motivating, because I think that's built in to a lot of what we already do, and the people that kind of trend towards being a doctor. I think we're less motivating. We're more reminding them of the joys of the motivation they had to start with, and that looks a whole bunch of different ways. That I think we're in a field where we often say that silence is our congratulations. Like silence is our motivator. The lack of criticism is a positive, and we need to remember that sometimes just giving positive reinforcement in a very stressful field is sometimes the small little nugget of motivation that people need to continue doing the job at a high level.
Makes sense. Have you ever had to have a hard or difficult conversation with a direct report, and how did you prepare for it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the hard conversations that I tend to have the most frequently have to do around kind of job performance. So I deal with training physicians who have graduated medical school but are in their process of training to be a specialist in the field that I'm in. So the hard conversations tend to be, hey, we're not on track. And for me, I need to make sure it's not just about someone doing their job at a highly competent level. It's I've got a responsibility in my job as a training head to make sure that people are where they need to be, because I sign off on them going out and being independent physicians. So once I kind of get to the point to say you're good, that's me. There's a trust within the community where we have to protect the community by ensuring that only the most competent people are going out and being physicians. And so the conversations I have a lot that are challenging are when we identify residents and coworkers that are not meeting those expectations, and the preparation is just it's coming at it from a place of grace and kindness. I think trying to understand that a lot of the hard conversations that I have are rarely about effort. It's more about strategies of how we make ourselves the best that we can be. And that comes from just starting at it from I'm not here to get onto you. I'm here to be a colleague in your journey towards success. And here's what we've identified as being obstacles on that journey. And here's some things that I've prepared for thinking about you individually in terms of how we can overcome that. So it's not so much the compliment sandwich, but it is kind of coming into hard conversations with more than just problem identification, but also having some solutions kind of preordained that we can come in so we can start making that conversation more productive than it would otherwise be.
Absolutely. Definitely sounds like it's very challenging to give direct feedback in your role regarding, just your everyday practices. So,
Yeah, I think it's expectation management. It's a lot easier to give. Nobody wants feedback. I used to joke whenever I was new to the role of being in the lead of the program that I wouldn't because I get all the feedback. I look at my job as being the program is about me. It is absolutely not about me. But whenever I'm kind of in charge of recruiting, I'm in charge of kind of getting my cohort through their 3 years of training. They're a very difficult time. I put a lot of there's a lot of my own person that kind of infiltrates into that, and so um, yeah, I have to remember that the hard conversations are rarely about me. They're about just us all getting better. And I think if you set expectations early in someone's career path of saying, hey, you're going to get formal feedback, you're going to get informal feedback. Um, I don't like getting feedback myself. Kind of the point I was trying to make was I would joke that I didn't like looking at evaluations of the program or my own training style unless I had a glass of wine in my hand because it's uncomfortable. And I think the more that we can get away from that being an uncomfortable situation. It's just a part of the growth journey. And I like to say that my leadership style is I try to make it relational because I found that the feedback that I get from people that I kind of relate with and I have a good relationship with, it means more. It never feels personal. It feels like, okay, we're just trying to grow together. And I don't know, I think it was, who was it? It wasn't. It was a quarterback that had said, don't why take criticism from someone you'd never take advice from. And I think we try to make that an early thing where I want to develop a relationship with you so I can give you hard feedback, and you know that it's coming from a great place.
yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. When you think about your communication and on your team, have you ever had like a individual or a misunderstanding conflict? And how did you overcome the conflict among the team?
Yeah, I mean, I deal with this a decent amount because we're getting again, my job is about receiving feedback and giving feedback as we're training a bunch of people to go do important things. And I get feedback from all over the place. And so I guess the analogy, I got feedback yesterday about a situation in an ICU about someone not doing something perfectly the right way, and I think the response from that email that someone's hoping is that I'll go and I'll agree with the problem that's been identified and I'll go and I'll fix the problem. And I think, more of the style for me is, okay, well, there's always, three sides to a story. Let's go get all the information, get all the details. So to me, that's more of how we try to approach it. Those difficult things is going in with an open mind, going in with grace, getting all the information, and just again trying to solve a problem. It's not about we've far I think gone beyond finding a workforce where you're getting on to people for certain things. It's about no, everyone's high functioning, everyone's highly motivated. Here's a problem, here's an obstacle that's been identified. Let's suss out the details to determine if it is not truly an obstacle. Then let's work together to find out how we don't have to overcome that obstacle in the future. So I think just coming at problems with grace, having as much information, trying to be a problem solver than a problem identifier is kind of the way that we try to go about those things.
Okay. Have, you kind of mentioned earlier setting expectations was critical early and often. Can you talk more about how you set expectations and some of the best practices you use to set expectations?
Yeah, I think the way that I work as a leader in my profession is often my preference of how I parent, which is setting expectations early, um, setting clearly identifiable expectations, and then also consequences when those expectations are not met. I don't like having to deal with problems individually all the time, and I find that I get a little bit more emotionally invested into some of those things than I would like to. And so um, my experience is if I just set expectations, set consequences early, um, that builds the culture. The culture kind of builds itself and feeds on itself. So I think that's probably the way that we do it the most is working with my, identifying leaders in the more senior group of, so our training program's 3 years. It's finding those third years who have been through the system. They understand the expectations, they understand the culture, getting them to buy in. And then they set the expectations for the second year. Say so they set expectations for the first years, and then you don't know what you don't know. So that's just what you're familiar with. Is this is how we do things, and then it just keeps feeding on itself. So yeah, I think it's just being very clear, being consistent in your feedback, being consistent in your, you know, in not letting things slide. So if you decide to make a decision to set an expectation, you've got to be consistent with it. And so we just find that, yeah, speaking clearly, early, often, and consistently are probably the ways that we help to maintain those expectations in the culture.
Yeah, culture is huge too. It sounds like it's important for you as you're funneling down expectations between your third years, your second years, and your first years. What are some of the things you do to really facilitate a positive culture among the team?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think because we're working 80 plus hours, we're in a high stakes environment. Um, I think the word that gets tossed around is trauma bonding a lot, which is just people are going through. Probably familiar with what you did with the military in boot camp, and that you really get close to people through just going through hard things together. Again, I think how do we get through those things? I think we try to put words to, hey, this is, I send out simple emails when we're getting our brains kicked in. Hey, this is an incredibly challenging time. You guys you're doing a great service for the community. You're doing exceptional work. Keep it up. Trying to remember that we're all pretty much intrinsically motivated. Recognizing, we try to do what's called kind of just wellness rounds, where I'm going in, our leadership team are going into the workspaces of the teams relatively often. Hey, what's working, what's not working, and it's not just on the big ticket items. It's, hey, what was the biggest challenge today? It could be that someone's keyboard wasn't working. It could be that someone's room temperature wasn't great. But trying to find little ways to fix problems that are challenging the day to day. I just think that the burnout exists a lot because you're tired, you're worn out, you're exhausted, you don't feel totally appreciated, and you don't have the bandwidth to fix the little bitty problems that kind of come along. And I think for us, just remembering to put positive words to the hard things that people are doing, find simple little ways to be impactful into someone's day to day, and then just kind of give remembrance to the workforce that we're here with you. We're down there with you in the weeds. We're equally working hard alongside with you. I think those are all kind of important ways to help build that culture.